Back with Lisa Zarcone for lesson number 2 in this series of amazing bits of wisdom and counsel that Lisa has to share after living through a life of incredible trauma and child abuse and writing her book that we've been talking about, and I highly recommend reading. If you get a chance, grab it. Because it's going to teach you so much. The Unspoken Truth. It's her memoir. And today's episode is actually dealing with um, the parental mental illness, because a lot of what she went through was a result of her mother's terrible mental health and what that led to. So, Lisa, thank you for coming back and continuing to share so many important things that I know come from some really, I mean, you share some experiences that some people might even be embarrassed to admit, but yet you do it in a way that just shows you lived through some horrible things. A lot of it, probably most of it, triggered by the fact that your mother had a very bad state in her mental health. And so, uh,
Yes.
could you go ahead and just start this episode by, not everyone may have read your book yet. Could you just give us a lot more information about your mom, how she behaved, and kind of what things created this very unstable childhood for you?
Yes. Well, Melanie, I'm glad we're able to do lesson number 2, and hopefully we'll just keep on going. There are important lessons as we move forward in talking about all these things. But when we talk about parental mental illness, so as a young child living with a parent who is struggling, how does a child navigate through those uncharted waters? So, not knowing or understanding what is happening, very, very difficult. And yes, in my story, The Unspoken Truth, I lay it all on the line. I talk about, the loss of my brother, the loss of my family, my mom's instabilities due to her mental illness. So when you take back to those times in those time frames of the 70s, and this is when my story, was happening back at that time, mental health wasn't talked about. Mental health was a very taboo subject. You didn't talk about it, no one spoke about it, and people did not get the proper help and support that they needed. And I always put this question out there: when the parent or guardian who is struggling does not get the proper and help and support that they need, who helps the child? I was that child. Who helps that child? When everything remains silent, the child falls through the cracks. The parent or guardian who is struggling falls through the cracks. So my mother struggled tremendously with mental illness. She was bipolar. She had borderline personality disorder. She was manic. And in her manic state, she had what they call schizoaffective behaviors. So she would change personalities. She wasn't truly a schizophrenic, but she did have those tendencies in her mania state. So my mother went from the highest of the highs to the lowest of the lows. We called it the Great Depression because that really, I don't mean, I know, right? But I am a little theatrical
Nice
sometimes.
play on words, yes.
Right, because I lived the theatrical world. So you do play on those words, but it's true. She did. She went to the highs and the lows. And as a young child, walking in those footsteps with her, living in a dysfunctional household, very, very scary, very unnerving. You never have stability. You always walk in the unknown of not knowing what's going to happen next. And for children, we know children need stability, they need structure, they need to know they're safe. I had none of that. I had the polar opposite. So as my mom declined, her behaviors we got scarier and worse. We started with mental abuse, the verbal abuse, and then we went to physical abuse. My mother was very aggressive at times and very physical. We would, be sitting at the kitchen table and she would get mad for I don't even know what she would be mad about. And all of a sudden she's throwing forks at me. She's throwing knives at me. I'm bobbing and weaving, trying to, not be hit. So
Wow.
imagine you're sitting at the dinner table eating your dinner, and all of a sudden you have all these things being thrown at you. Those were the instabilities, the impulsive moments that would happen, and you never knew when they were coming. So as a child, living that every single day really, really causes a lot of stress, dysfunction, obviously, but a lot of damage, a lot of mental damage, because as a child's mind grows and develops, it needs to be nurtured. And when you're having these things happen, you're getting what's called misfires because your brain is like not knowing what to do and you don't have the capacity to really absorb the reality. So that is like living with somebody who is mentally ill and struggling. That is the life of a young child. It's always unstable and it's always scary.
Yeah, that's it's how do I put it? I think it's hope giving to hear you speak of that and talk about the misfirings and see how healthy you are today. There's probably a lot of people who've been through something similar and wonder if they'll ever recover or be able to feel grounded. How do you feel today? Can you describe your, I know it was an unstable childhood to the extreme. Where are
Yeah.
you today, and what advice do you have to for anyone who maybe grew up with a parent that had that kind of mental illness, and how can they what can they do that maybe they haven't tried yet, or just what helped you?
Yes. So today I do feel whole. I have my pings of the past. I have, those moments that, those things come back, and those are those struggles that you always continually work through. But I do feel whole. I feel that, everything that I've worked on has helped me get to this point here where I could speak comfortably about these things. I can share my experiences and wisdom, knowing that by putting it out there, I am helping somebody else. And the best advice I can give to somebody who grew up in silence like I did, you went through an unstable upbringing for whatever has happened in your upbringing environment. Start to talk about it, write it down, really break it into pieces. I say go back to the beginning, break it into pieces, but really look at all of it and allow yourself to look at it and say, yes, this was wrong. Yes, this was dysfunctional, and even go to the point, I can't believe I even went through that. But here I am today, still pushing forward, still, using my strength and my courage and pulling from those inner strengths to overcome. And those are the ways that you are going to find that you can become whole once again. As you work on it, release it, let it go to the best of your ability, then go on to the next step. And give yourself breaks in between because it gets heavy, it gets dark. Give yourself those breaks in between, but just remind yourself that you have to keep on going because you have to look at it as hard as it is, and you have to deal with it on, the levels you need to overcome the disruptions of abusive pasts.
So you wrote this lengthy and very detailed book that's above my shoulder that we brought up, and eh, was that okay? I'm trying how to ask this question. Was that the writing that you did primarily to bring you to this healing state? Did you do a lot of writing prior to deciding to write a book? You know what I'm asking? Like,
Yes, so I,
did
I
you
did.
have a book in mind the whole time? When did you decide to put it publicly in a
Yes,
book?
I didn't have a book per se in mind. I always knew I wanted to share my story in
Mhm.
some capacity. I always wanted to write a book. But back in the beginning, when I was journaling and writing my things down and doing poetry, all those things that I did to help myself, I wasn't thinking this is book form. I was thinking this is how I feel in the moment. And as I wrote more and did more, and thought about, I do want to share my story. I do want to validate and put it out there into the world and let people know that they're not alone in these horrendous things that happen behind closed doors. So as I decided to write my book, I wanted to do it from the child's perspective. And I wanted people to understand the child's views, the feelings, the thoughts that come with living in the unstable household with a parent who's mentally ill, the pains of abuse, and the pains of everything that comes with that, the instabilities. So as it came together, my mindset really focused on, I need to do this from the child's perspective. And
Mm.
when people are doing their own work, they need to look at their self from their child's perspective, from the inner child, because when you do so and you're tapping into those painful feelings, because they are painful, there's a lot of tears in writing this book, a lot of tears and just writing in general. But when you tap into those inner feelings and those inner child thoughts, you are truly taking those steps to heal. And it's so very important to look at the child's feelings, your inner child
Yeah.
feelings. Yes.
I would add to that, because I'm very much involved in narrative therapy. That's why I do what I do. What I find is that when you write about it and you're looking at the child, but you're actually doing it from a new position. You've stepped out of that and you're looking at it from a place I like to call a researcher, where
Yeah.
you're actually investigating this
Yes.
life. It's your life, but there's this, I think it's a, um, I just think it's a gift, that we're given when we write, to be able to step away and look at the whole situation, because you do a really good job of that, both in the book and especially now as you speak. You're able to kind of see the bigger picture, so to speak, and
Yeah.
say, okay, this is what I thought, this is what I felt, and how this is how I can see it now. And I think it allows a lot of healing to happen when you remove yourself from being in, obviously you're not reliving the abuse, the rapes that you underwent,
Yes.
and everything.
So much.
Um,
So
so
much.
you're seeing it from the outside now, but
You're
you're
seeing it from a
understanding the
different
child.
perspective. It's looking
Yeah.
through a different lens when you do this. So writing my book, tapping into those old core memories of how I felt in those moments, and the horrendous stuff that happened to me, but in reading it back to myself and looking at it, and you break it apart, but you're also looking at it through different lenses, different perspectives. And then I even have gone to the extent of looking at the abuse factor through my abuser's eyes, and
Mm. Now
looking.
that's mature, isn't it?
It's
But
a
really,
that did come with after a lot of work, but I did, to hit
yeah,
another level of healing. I looked at my abuse through my mother's eyes, through my father's eyes, through my sexual abuser's eyes. What was their story? What was everything that happened with them that brought them to a place where I was the victim? How did I get to be that victim? That is a
that,
lot of maturity. It's a lot of self
yeah,
work. And you really have to be open minded to even give compassion. That might sound crazy, but even give compassion to your abusers in a sense, because they were struggling with whatever they were struggling. And
I
that's not to
agree.
say it was right, because it's
Yeah.
completely wrong,
Mm.
but it just gives you another lens to look through. And when you get understanding to a point of why it happened to you, it does help you heal. It does help you push forward. It doesn't change the fact that these things were very wrong, and it doesn't change the fact that they happened, but it just does give you another level and another way to look at life, and look at your own personal life. And
I
it
think
does
that
help.
is so critical, what you just said, and so key. And I know you talked about, there was a boy that was a few years older than you. Your mom invited him to the home, and he
Yes.
was extremely abusive. And you write about that. And I think at some point you found out that his mother had sexually abused him. So he had
Yeah.
been abused by his own mother.
And that brings me up to two key points here
Yeah.
when you say that. So, first thing, when someone is unhealthy, they bring unhealthy people into the home life. So, children who are already living this unstable lifestyle, the parent is unstable. Now they're bringing more unstable people into your home, into your environment. That creates a whole nother level of chaos. And that also opens up children as prey to all these predators out there that look for these scenarios, these exact scenarios.
Yeah.
You have a parent or guardian unstable. Now that's their way of getting into your home, looking at the scene, seeing what they could take. And what are they
Mhm.
looking to take? Usually something from a child or a young adult.
Yeah.
So that is one key factor. Yes. And then by her bringing him into the home, that made me the prey.
Yeah.
But getting the research on the other aspect of this is the research of his life. His mother did abuse him. His father was a severe alcoholic. There was mental illness in their family. So his lifestyle before even meeting me, knowing me, was horrific in its own right. So there I found understanding.
Yeah.
Did I find true compassion? In a sense, yes, because I was living that same awful lifestyle. Hard to find forgiveness when you are sexually abused in such a horrific way. But I did try to work through that piece the best that I could. But honestly, by really looking through the eyes of my abusers, it did give me a better perspective about why, the answer to why did this happen to me? That gave me those answers, and that was very helpful.
Yeah, that's so key. I feel like this show needs to be titled "Parental Mental Health and Overcoming Sexual Abuse." You know, because
Well, it all,
that's
in a sense, it all
so
ties in
key.
together
Yes.
because, child safety and mental health, and I say that all the time, they tie in together because when you
Yeah.
have someone, again, a parent's unstable, you're bringing
Mhm.
unstable people, you're living an unstable lifestyle, bad things do
And
happen.
they're searching for somebody to help their mental health, and usually it's in the form of what in the I wrote a book about narcissism, and they're looking for source, their supply. I mean, the
Yes,
supply to feed their ego, to try to give them some dopamine for at least a short time. And
right.
usually the supply they're finding, in your case, they're bringing in people that will just turn around and abuse. And I see that. I see what you're saying. The link between the mental health and finding someone who will fill the void that usually is not always, but can often be unhealthy themselves. And then now you bring him in to a home with children, and you're dealing with so much. And we there's a cycle, and I'm
There is this,
certain you've stopped the cycle. Just you're in
yes,
a wonderful place now. Would you
yes,
just share a tiny bit about where you are today? I think that really will help people to know how good you're doing, especially if they've read your story.
yes.
Because your story, just to say, your story kind of ends at a point where you actually met the man you married, and it's beautiful, and it's kind of it's very um, fairy tale almost, in a way, but we don't really.
Had a romantic feel to it. At the end of this tragedy of a story, there's a romantic ending. And it's
My only criticism is that you didn't clearly state that this is the man you married. I had to ask you, was it Johnny? Did you marry him? And so
well, see,
you're in a good
that's
place.
the
So
point in itself. You leave it that way, so people do have to ask those questions, and they
yeah, we got to come to you for that.
can't come to me and say what happened. But no, like what you're saying is, I grew up in this horrendous lifestyle. I had to deal with parents that were both struggling tremendously. Then that brings you to the next step where you become prey to others because of those instabilities. Now, how do you overcome it? How do you keep moving forward? And I did fight. I fought for a long, long time, and I held it silent. And then I did meet the man of my dreams, and so that gives you like the light at the end of the tunnel. So I want
Yes.
my story on that note because my story is so dark and so traumatic. I wanted to end my book in a place where it was like, you know what? You made it. You're
You
overcoming.
made it.
You're moving forward. Good things are coming in your life. You're fighting for those things. But
Yeah.
by keeping things silent, it did come back to haunt me. It came back to haunt me, and I had to do the work. That was like I was flatlined. I had to, bottom. I hit rock bottom. That said to me, "What kind of life do you want, Lisa? Do you want to live in this misery of your past, or do you want to work through it and bring a good life for yourself?" And I always knew I wanted better, so I did fight for it. I fought for myself. I fought for my family, to make us whole once again, because I was not whole. I was very damaged, and I had to work through that damage. And again, I always go back to mindset. My mindset was, I want a good life. I deserve a
Mhm.
good life, and that's what I'm going to fight for. And I
Mhm.
did. So now, fast forward to now, today, my husband and I are married 38 years.
Oh, how long?
38 years. Yeah,
Wow.
I know. 38
That's
years, and
amazing.
we still laugh together. It's a positive.
Wow. That's just amazing. It really is.
Yes, and we
30.
raised three children. We're raising our
Mhm.
two of our grandchildren. We're raising, so we're doing it all over again. So life is full. Life is hard at times, obviously, but happy and
Yeah.
joyous. And we make the best of all situations. And because of the work that I did, I now allowed this other stuff to come in, the good stuff, the stuff
Yeah.
that we all should have in our world. And that, I hope, gives other people hope and faith that they can get there as well. Start doing the work to take care of you, because once you take care of you, you bring in all this other good stuff. You bring in the light, you bring in positivity. I do try to be positive. Am I positive every moment of the day? No, life is not always positive, but I always try to find positive reasoning and positive outcomes to any situation that I might be facing. And that all comes back to doing the self work, the
Yeah.
hard work, digging in those trenches and really doing it and taking care of those past pings of pains and all of
You know,
the
I
nitty gritties there.
to have you say that, I'm just going to, this is sort of a organic show.
Yeah.
I'll say that. So as I hear you say that, I just want to ask you to come back and let's do an episode where I'm not sure what to title it, something to do, doing the hard work, doing the stuff work. So I'd love you to come back and really detail what some of those things are that people should do, because it's a very, it's an excellent directive to give, go do the work so you can have the joy. but
Yes.
but in that, people might be like, okay, I want to, but what do I do? And
Where do I
I
start?
think that,
How do I start?
I feel like that needs its own show. I don't want to have parental mental health illness above that, all this amazing information. So let's put that into another episode that we'll do next. And really, I'd love for you to break down, and you might have to think about it a little more. And I know you talk about speak and write, and let's just kind of make a list of the things that you've done that would help someone. But before we go, I do have a couple quotes that you shared with me that I want to bring up and just kind of talk a little bit. And they probably belong really well in the next episode too. But let's just kind of touch on this a little bit,
Okay.
and then we'll look forward to getting those lessons. So this first quote, if you want to read it, I'll bring it up.
Strength and growth come only through continuous effort and struggle. That's a very powerful statement, because when you are going through those difficult times and you're living in dysfunction and chaos, it's hard to be determined and it's hard to have the strength to overcome and push through. But the more you dig deep and you pull in from the inner strength, that is what's going to keep you motivated to keep going. And you do grow and you do learn. And things do eventually change. And that is really the message right there, the growing, the changing. Take your strength and your courage and just keep pushing forward, because at the end of the day, you're looking to save yourself. I thought a lot about that many times. How am I going to save myself from what I'm going through, and how am I going to get through it? And inner strength and the courage to just keep going is really important.
Yeah, and you walk the talk, and
Well, thank
that's
you.
important. It's
It is.
important.
Yes, to be authentic. And I feel
Mhm.
always feel that when you're authentic with people, they do connect and they do realize, I'm just a person. I'm a person who went through some horrific things. I'm a person who had a mentally ill mother who really did so much damage. But I'm a person who has overcome. I'm a person who has fought through it, persevered,
Mhm.
and I continue to grow. I continue to evolve and to heal on new levels. You never hit a point where you're done growing. I don't believe that. I believe that there's always something new to learn. There's always something new to tap into. And the more you do those things, again, the better you are, the more whole you become. So yes, those things are all so very important.
Let me bring up the next quote now.
Oh, this is a good one, but it's positive. Difficult roads always lead to beautiful destinations. My road was treacherous. There's a word right there. My road was treacherous. I'm not alone in that. I wish I could say that child abuse and all of these things are uncommon, but they're not. They're very common. So many of us have walked it. Many people are walking it now. Other people have lost their lives because of it. But if you continue to fight, push forward, keep the faith, remind yourself, that you deserve better, that you are worthy of good things in your life, and keep telling yourself you're going to get there, and also visualize yourself there. I'm a big one in visualizing, because when you visualize the outcome, where you want to be, where you could be, and that's what gives you the motivation to keep on going. So those beautiful destinations is what you need to think about when you're really struggling.
I agree with that. You've got to have hope, and it has to be hope that's grounded in what you believe that you can do. You have
Yes,
to believe something to make it possible.
you do.
And the example of others often is what we need to help us believe something. It sounds cliche. It is cliche to say, well, if you can do it, I can do it. But there's just something to that, to seeing somebody do something that you think that seems impossible.
Right. And we
And
walk together. That's a
yeah.
big one right there. When you think of, you know, compassion, empathy, unity, the
Mm,
common denominator that we're all connected by these things in life. We walk together. And when we walk together, we share, we encourage. So just like I'm hoping to encourage somebody with my story and my experiences, like you're sharing your experiences, I get encouraged when I hear other people talk about their experiences. I take something from all the different things that I read and that I hear. I read other survivors' stories because
mm,
there's a message in every single story. We've been through these things together. The same but different.
yeah.
So we all have something to learn, and we all have a way to encourage one another
Oh,
by sharing our realities.
I echo that. I echo that. I come on, and I come from my background is I lost a baby at 7 months old. You know,
Yes.
And I started out in bereavement, but then I moved into helping veterans with PTSD. And then I moved into helping incarcerated veterans, and I moved into helping all the incarcerated. And I just truly believe what you just said, which is that we don't have to have the same tragedy.
No,
We can read books from other people who've been through challenges that are not our challenges, but so severe and so hard. And we can have empathy or sympathy depending on the book, right?
I
Like
was happy.
I have sympathy. I don't have empathy for what you've been through, because thankfully I didn't have that in my life, but I can absolutely read your book and say, wow, what she went through is harder than what I've been through. And because you are where you are, I believe I can get there. You know what I mean? Like,
No,
and
and
so,
I've read other
yeah,
stories and spoke with other people. Of course, with the line of work I do, and with being with NASCA and dealing with adult survivors of childhood
yeah,
abuse, I've heard stories much more difficult than mine, and mine is pretty rough. So you
hard
do
to believe. Yeah.
sympathize, you do empathize with people and all their different struggles, and that's what makes us real. That's
Yeah.
what makes us good people, offering kindness, offering listening ear, giving compassion and kindness as often as possible.
Yeah.
We learn from one another, and we support one another through these things. And the more we do these videos and people listen to them, again, I hope you can always take something positive away from it. Realize that you are not alone in your struggles. We've all been through things. We're all here to get to where we need to be. And if we can
Yeah.
encourage each other along the way, that's just a beautiful thing.
There's that word. And I was just going to say that's the beautiful destination.
Yes, that is.
It can just be the companionship and the friendship, and the love that
Yes,
you get for people. And I believe we love more the more we hurt, the more we are open. We talk about, like, brokenheartedness. I mean, in Christianity, it's we have a broken heart. It doesn't mean that we're broken like a broken family. It means our heart is open, and the
yes,
more open we are, the more we receive and the more we give love. So, but at the same time, sometimes it does take dysfunction and tragedy and trauma to break a heart open, so it's not
yes,
hard, and it receives love. And that is the beautiful destination. And when you reach that point, and I feel like that's what we're sharing in right now in this moment, just
yes.
the chance to meet you and get to have these conversations. And
No, I'm glad.
hopefully some people watching will connect with us and share their stories in the comments, and we can connect with each other and just kind of build. It's lovely. I love the work I do. I love going into the prisons. I mean, it's
And I
horrible in there, but
understand that you do love it, because I
yeah,
think if you look at your theme and my theme are very similar. Whatever we're doing, we're looking to help somebody, whether it's like
yeah,
you said, veterans, or someone who's incarcerated. I've helped young children, disabled adults, teenage girls in lockup.
mm,
Like, I've done all these
yeah,
different things, but that common theme is always about helping someone. Even as a young girl, as a teenager, when I was still struggling with my own personal stuff, every job I took was about helping somebody. I worked with kids in summer camp and
that's right.
disabled children, and they had these bowling programs and all these other programs. I immersed myself in that
That
because
was That was the really transitional point, I'd say, in your story, having
Yes.
read your book. It was
Yes.
when you got that job working with the kids for the summer and quitting something else to go and do it, I believe.
Yes.
And somebody giving you the chance, that woman that gave you the shot to do
Yes.
something so meaningful. That was it. That was the transitional moment. So
Yes.
whether you have to
My
go
mentor.
seek it, or or somebody comes in your life and offers you an opportunity to do something meaningful with what you've been through, take it. Because
Yes.
that we got to
It's
put that on the list for the
someone
next lessons.
sees something in you. So Judy saw something in me, and
Mhm.
she pushed me to do more and to do better.
Yeah.
And that was a very transitional point in my lifetime. I was 15 years old, and it made me really realize that I deserve better and I want better. And I was already thinking about giving back, because when I worked with the kids and their struggles, I felt like I was helping them, and that gave me purpose. And once I had a purpose, I just flew from there and just kept on going. And I've been going ever since. And I'll continue to push forward. And I love to hear comments from people. So write comments in there, because I love answering comments. Reach out to me privately, or reach
Yeah.
out to you privately. I love to hear from people, because another way we can help one another is by sharing. So I'm always
Yeah.
willing to, to talk to somebody.
Yeah, we just encourage you to comment. Definitely give us a little thumbs up if you enjoyed this. It just
Yes.
helps other people find it if you do. Yeah, it's just an easy way to pay it forward. And
Yes.
if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. We definitely are going to have a lot more lessons coming out, and I have so many amazing authors that I get to interview. So subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified when the next show is out. And thank you so much, Lisa, for all of your wisdom and taking the time out to be with us today. And we will look forward to that long list of specifics
Oh, yes.
of what people can do to really
I got to put lists together now. I got
do
lists.
the personal work. You said it. Now
No, it's
tell us
true.
how to do it.
I will. I will. I'll put some things together, and we'll definitely do some more episodes and share the wisdom. Let's share that wisdom.
Yeah, we'll do it. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.